deportment and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair would like to recognize the senator from the 4th to speak to House Bill 530.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, members of the Senate. It's a very sad time for me to present this bill. Many of you have seen the press coverage of the two young people, Mary and Elwin Crocker from Effingham County, who were found murdered in the backyard of area where their parents live, or where one of their parents lived. And as the story unfolded, it just became obvious that in this case the system failed these young people. They were tortured and just suffered horrible things, and then eventually murdered and buried there. What this bill attempts to do is to strike a good balance between the responsibility of the school to know when a child is withdrawn from school, the reason why, and the line, the other side of the line is we don't want to burden homeschool parents, of whom there are thousands across our state who do a wonderful job of homeschooling children. So let me just take a quick second and explain what happens today. Today, when a parent withdraws a child from school, they have within 30 days the responsibility to file a declaration of intent to homeschool. And they also have to file this intent every September. They file this with the State Board of Education. Up until now, that information was not necessarily shared with the local board, with the local school. So what this bill attempts to do is add another step and says that when a parent files that application, the school should get that copy. And the school then has, from the date that school either starts or the date that the child started missing school, the parent has 30 days to file the intent. The school has 45 days if the child has not been in school for 45 days and they don't have either a transfer slip from another school or a copy of this declaration of intent, then they notify DFACS, who will do an assessment. If the DFACS shows up at a home and the parents have a copy of that declaration of intent that they have filed and it just somehow didn't make it to the school, all they have to do is show that declaration and the assessment is ended right there. So there are protections built in for homeschool parents to keep them from being harassed by DFACS. But what it will do is give our school a chance to, if a child has missed school for 45 straight days and they have no record of what has happened, then that is a safety catch to ensure that somebody is looking to see where these children are and seeing if they've been withdrawn to educate, and if they have, that's fine. They have that right. If they've been withdrawn to continue abuse or to start something else, then that of course is DFACS's responsibility. That's basically what the bill does. It's it's late to save the lives of these two children, but the people in my district, the people in Effingham County in that area are looking for us to take a responsible step. Representative Hitchens over in the House, has a long career in law enforcement, as you know, worked very hard on this bill, met with homeschool attorneys and others on both sides of the issue, and I think has worked out a bill that will add that incremental step that needs to be added and will not be a burden to homeschool parents as well. So, Mr. President, that's pretty much what the bill does. I'd be happy to attempt to answer questions.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 9th for a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Chairman, will you yield?
Yes, sir.
Isn't it true that we looked over this very carefully, had 2 meetings in the Senate Education and Youth Committee, and all parties are in agreement with this, and the homeschoolers are very happy with what we came up with in the end?
That's my understanding. Everyone is satisfied. Thank you.
You have no more questions.
I urge your adoption. Thank you, Mr. President.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there objection or agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? The chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass? The question is on the passage of the bill. All those in favor will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 50, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. We have a birthday amongst us today, and I'd like to call out the senator from the 48th and wish her a happy birthday. Thanks for spending it with us. Do you have any questions?
Mr. President,
For what purpose does the senator from the 48th rise?
is there a fiscal note for my birthday?
Yes. Mr. Secretary, will you read the caption of House Bill 382?
House Bill 382 by Representative Burns of the 159th and others, a bill be titled enactment Chapter 6A of Title 12 of the OCGA relating to outdoor stewardship so as to redefine eligible applicants for and recipient of the grants to provide for up to 5% of trust monies for state administrative costs, to provide for annual reporting of program administration expenditures, and for other purposes. Mr. President, Senate Committee on Natural Resources and the Environment offers the following substitute to House Bill 382, a bill be titled enactment Chapter 6A of Title 12 of the OCGA relating to outdoor stewardship so as to redefine eligible applicants for and recipients of the grants, to provide for up to 5% of trust money for state administrative costs, provide for annual reporting of program administrative expenditures, and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
For what purpose does the senator from the 4th rise?
I ask unanimous consent for the senator from the 49th to be excused for business inside the Capitol.
Without objection, the senator from the 49th is excused. Chair recognizes the senator from the 51st to speak to House Bill 382.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I have a simple cleanup bill here. House Bill 382 is a cleanup legislation from last year's Georgia Outdoor Stewardship Act. You may recall we passed this constitutional amendment last year in this body almost unanimously, and the House did the same. It went to the voters, and it passed with over 80% approval from the citizens of Georgia in November. This bill just adds some cleanup language, some definitions, where there's some inconsistencies there from the original bill, fixes a timeline issue that was created by the original language so that now the DNR will be able to promulgate their rules in an appropriate manner, and it includes a 5% fee that they'll be able to take care of all their administrative costs in-house. It won't cost the budget in the appropriations process. Mr. President, I'm happy to yield for questions.
You have no questions.
Thank you.
Any other senators wish to speak for or against the bill? Chair hears none. The question is on the adoption of the committee's substitute. Is there objection to adoption of the committee's substitute? Chair hears none. The committee's substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass by substitute? The question is on passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 47, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. Chair recognizes the majority leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we suspend Rule 4-2.10 for the sole purpose of considering HB 321.
The majority leader has moved that we suspend the rules to move up in the calendar House Bill 321. Mr. Secretary, will you read the caption of House Bill 321?
House Bill 321 by Representative Lott of the 122nd and others, a bill be titled enact amend Article 6C of Chapter 8 of Title 31 of the OCGA relating to the hospital Medicaid financing program so as to extend the sunset provision for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Is there objection to suspend the rules and move up to the front of the calendar House Bill 321? No objection, and so moved. Mr. Secretary, will you read the caption to House Bill 321?
House Bill 321 by Representatives Law of the 122nd and others, a bill be titled enacted in Article 6C of Chapter 8 of Title 31 of the OCGA, relating to the hospital Medicaid financing program so as to extend the sunset provision and for other purposes. Mr. President, Senate Committee on Finance offers the following substitute to House Bill 321. Bill be titled enacted in Title 31 of the OCGA, relating to health so as to provide for the posting of certain documents on hospital websites, provide for requirements, provide for definition, provide for conflicting interest transactions for members of hospital authorities to extend the sunset provision for the hospital Medicaid finance program to amend Code Section 48.729.20 of the OCGA relating to tax credits for contribution to rural health organizations so as to provide for undesignated contributions, reporting, and an annual credit, and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 19th to speak to House Bill 321.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the Senate, it's my pleasure to bring before you now House Bill 321. You've seen it in numerous forms. As you know, many years ago we were asked to provide a provider fee for the purpose of filling a hole in the Medicaid budget. How this fee works is our hospitals pay 1.5% of their profits into a fund, which we then leverage against federal funds to create two times the amount of money. So we end up with roughly about $350 million of hospital profit funds. We match that with another roughly $700 million of federal funds to create about $1 billion that we use to fund our Medicaid programs across the state. The second part, actually it's Section 1 now, this bill, but the second part of this bill is a part to provide a little bit of transparency for hospitals. Nonprofit hospitals, we ask that they disclose, we do give them some benefits here in the state. The first is the main part's in our tax code. We don't tax their profits. So what this bill does is it says let's make sure that we understand what those hospitals are doing and how profitable they are, and make sure that the funds that we're allowing them to not be taxed are going to do what we'd want them to do, take care of charity care, take care of our rural communities. And so there are now 11 things in this bill that we ask that they disclose, including their community benefit report, their annual hospital questionnaire, the disproportionate share hospital survey, disclose their 990 forms, also that they disclose their top 10 payments of their employees. These are things that we think are important that we can put in a transparent way so we can make sure, again, that those Medicaid dollars that are coming out of our citizens' pockets are being spent adequately and appropriately. Now, you may hear that some of these things are also already being reported. That is accurate, it's true. But what this bill requires is they aggregate those things and place them on their hospital website so that they're easily available for citizens of their community who many times are also helping to support these hospitals with their local millage rate. Mr. President, if there are no questions, I'll yield the well.
You do have a question. The chair recognizes the senator from the 23rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the senator yield?
Yes, sir.
There's been a lot of discussion about the reporting of indigent care. Is there anything in the bill that would define how that is calculated? Because hearing examples of the same procedure being billed to insurance at $100 is billed to indigent care at $600, or is treated differently. Is there something that will help make this a useful and accurate disclosure?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for bringing that question, and I appreciate it almost as though it was planted. I wish it would have been, but I want to point you now to lines 76 through 78, which walk through not necessarily laying out exactly how the hospital has to report it, but makes it clear that they have to tell us how they're reporting it so we can make sure we're comparing apples to apples in such situations. Mr. President, if there are no further questions, I'll yield the well.
You have no questions.
Thank you, Mr. President. I urge your favor and support of House Bill 321.
All right, any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? Chair hears none. The question's on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to adoption of the committee substitute? Chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass by substitute? The questions on passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 41, the nays are 11. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. For what purpose is the senator from the 19th rise?
I was going to ask for
He waives. Secretary just informed me that his staff is beginning to distribute a stack of agrees and disagrees for you to begin to process through. We will start taking these up later today, but I just wanted to make sure that you knew what was coming your way. Mr. Secretary, can you read the caption of House Bill 525?
House Bill 525 by Reverend Stevens of the 164th. The bill will be titled Enactment Article 4, Chapter 7, Title 50 of the OCGA, relating the Georgia International Maritime Trade Center, so as to dissolve the Georgia International Maritime Trade Center Authority, to rename the Convention Center, to create the Savannah, Georgia Convention Center Authority, to provide for legislative findings, to provide for definitions, to provide for its membership, manner of appointments, terms of office, and powers of duty, and for other purposes. Floor substitute 1 by Senator Jackson II and others offers the following substitute to House Bill 525, a bill we titled Enactment Article 4, Chapter 7, Title 50 of the OCGA, relating to the Georgia International Maritime Trade Center, so as to dissolve the Georgia International Maritime Trade Center Authority, to rename the Convention Center, to create the Savannah, Georgia Convention Center Authority, to provide for legislative findings, and for other purposes. Amendment 1 by Senator Watson of the 1st and others offers the following amendment. Amend House Bill 525 by inserting after laws on line 8 to amend Code Section 45, 15, 13 of the OCGA, relating to representation of state authorities by Attorney General, so as to conform the list of authorities represented by the Attorney General, and for other purposes. Amendment 2 by Senator Jackson II offers the following amendment. Amend House Bill 525 by replacing 6 on line 54 with 7, replacing 3 on line 55 with 4. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 1st to speak to House Bill 525 and his amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 525 does simply a couple of things. Namely, it does change the name of the Georgia International Maritime Trade Center to the Savannah Convention Center. It is already a state authority, and this just confirms is what this bill does. It puts it into a new authority, Convention Center Authority, and it's to be located in Chatham County. It will be governed by a board of 11 members appointed by the governor, the local legislative delegation, as well as ex officio voting members from Visit Savannah and the Savannah Economic Development Authority. This convention center originally opened 19 years ago. It was on Hutchinson Island, just across the Savannah River from downtown Savannah. The amendment that I have is sponsored by myself and the senator from the 2nd. This basically allows the money to flow through to the Department of Economic Development. This is the same language that is used in the Tech Square, ATDC, here in Atlanta. Mr. President, if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
You have no questions.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 2nd to speak to his amendment and to the measure. Amendment number 2.
Okay. Members, I bring you my amendment number 2 to House Bill 525. This is a little amendment to make the bill better. What it does is give the governor of our great state one more appointment to the authority, and it gives the local delegation one more appointment to the authority. It keeps control within the governor's office, doesn't hurt anybody. It ran it past the governor's office. He has no problems with the amendment. I hope we all, I trust we all would vote for amendment number 2 and amendment number 1 and vote for the bill. Thank you.
Senator has yielded the well. Chair recognizes the senator from the 1st to speak to amendment number 2.
Thank you, Mr. President. Though the senator from the 2nd and I are in full agreement on amendment number 1, amendment number 2 is such that we have, that I and the governor's office and the author of this bill have carefully crafted the makeup of this authority, which we are not in agreement with any changes, so I would be against amendment number 2. Thank you.
Senator has yielded the well. Chair recognizes the senator from the 2nd to speak to his floor substitute, number 1.
I come to you, members, to urge you to vote for the floor substitute to Senate Bill, House Bill 525. What the floor substitute does is it gives the governor one more seat to this authority. You know, it's a governing body. It helps them out, and also it gives one more seat to this authority to members of the Senate. We know that good government requires all parties at the table, and when you have members of the Senate at the table governing this multi-million-dollar expansion, we know it'll be good for our state, it'll be good for the local government authority, and it just makes good government. I'll take any questions.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 46th for a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the senator yield for a couple of questions?
To my good friend from the 46th, yes, sir.
I've been reading about as fast as I can, trying to follow why we need a statewide law for a local convention center. We got them all over the state, and they're not run by the state or authorities. And you might can just help me. Is this going to require state funding for Savannah to have a bigger convention center?
Well, if you look at the budget, we already have $13 million in the budget. We have money in the budget for a state for this convention center. This is a lot like the World Congress Center. We do a lot of tourism. A lot of conventions come to Savannah. We need a larger convention center. We have put money in the convention center last year and this year. But this is really a local issue. It's a local authority. It used to be a local authority. We're putting the controls into the governor's office, which I have no problems with, but we just need more representation locally on the authority.
Got it.
And that's what this bill does.
So it's really a state property already?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay, thank you.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 41st, the minority leader.
Senator Yield?
Yes, sir, I do.
Is it not true that when this was a local authority, there was much more control and a lot more people on the board from the local Savannah area?
Well, thank you for that question. Originally, there were 8 members of the delegation had an appointment onto the board. This bill reduced it to 3, but if I urge you to vote for my amendment, it increased it to 4 local representation.
Senator Further Yield?
Yes, sir.
Is it not true that this has a tremendous economic impact on the Savannah area? And is it not further true that allowing another member of the board is actually a very reasonable and balanced request by the senator from the 2nd?
It is a very reasonable request, and also it's something that the governor has no problems with doing. It does not relinquish his control. It still gives him the majority vote of the authority, and it's just good government. Thank you, Senator.
Chair recognizes the senator and a birthday senator from the 48th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Does the senator yield?
To the birthday lady, yes, I do.
Thank you, and I apologize, you're chairman. I should have said the chairman yield. First, for my birthday, I want to say nothing I'd rather be doing than being here working for the citizens of Georgia with all of you hardworking senators, and it's an honor to be here. So, Mr. Chairman, you mentioned there's $13 million in the budget for this year.
Yes.
Do we foresee that this is going to be an ongoing financial obligation for the state of Georgia, for the center?
Well, we're in the midst of doing major renovations to our authority at a cost of $250 million. So we're going to come back and ask the state for more money. So it's important that members of this body have representation at the table.
So does the senator further yield?
Yes, ma'am.
So do we have a fiscal note on this bill?
We do not have a fiscal note on this bill, ma'am.
Okay, and but do we have an estimate?
Yes, ma'am, there is an estimate.
And what is that?
About $250 million.
$250 million. Okay. No further questions.
You have no more questions.
Thank you. I urge you to vote for the floor substitute. If not, vote for the amendment. Thank you.
The chair recognizes the senator from the 1st to speak to the floor substitute number 1.
Thank you, Mr. President. The floor substitute basically is the same as the amendment number 2, which increases the authority size. And let me just note that the 100% of the members of the World Congress Center and of the Jekyll Island Authority are appointed by the governor. So in essence, we do get a share in say and a share in the local government. So the floor substitute will also push it to another day, meaning tomorrow. If we vote down the floor substitute and the amendment and go with the one that is required, then we're both in full agreement on the First Amendment, both the senator from the 2nd and I, relating to the funding, then we'll get this passed and agreed upon. Thank you so much.
Senator has yielded the well. All right, so here's the current posture. For what purpose does the senator from the 2nd rise?
Mr. President, isn't it true that the governor has agreed to the
parliamentary inquiry?
Yes, sir.
State your inquiry.
Isn't it true, Mr. President, that the governor has agreed to amendment number 2? The governor's office?
Not an appropriate question. All right, here's the course of action. We're going to take up amendment number 1. Then we're going to take up amendment number 2 that perfect the original underlying bill. Then we will take up the floor substitute, and based on the action of those 3 votes, then we'll proceed from there. The first question we've got here is on the adoption of amendment number 1. Is there objection to the adoption of amendment number 1? Chair hears none, and a floor amendment number 1 is adopted. Now we will take up amendment number 2. The question is on the adoption of the amendment. Is there objection to adoption of amendment number 2? There is objection. All those in favor of the amendment from the senator from the 2nd will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the adoption of amendment number 2, the yeas are 21, the nays are 31, and the amendment is lost. All right, now we will take up the floor substitute. The question is on the adoption of the floor substitute by the senator from the 2nd. Is there objection to the adoption of the floor substitute? There is objection. All those in favor of the floor substitute will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the adoption of the floor substitute, the yeas are 22, the nays are 30, and the floor substitute is lost. All right, does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? The chair hears none, and the previous question is ordered. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none, and the report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? The chair hears none, and the main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass as amended? The questions on the passage of the bill as amended. All those in favor will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 32, the nays are 20. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed as amended. Ms. Secretary, can you read the caption of House Bill 353, please?
House Bill 353 by Representative Carpenter of the 4th and others, a bill we titled enacted in Chapter 1 of Title 33 of the OCGA, relating to general provisions regarding insurance so as to create the crime of staging a motor vehicle collision and for other purposes. Mr. President, Senate Committee on Judiciary offers the following to substitute House Bill 353, a bill be titled enact to amend Chapter 1 of Title 33 of the OCGA, relating to general provisions regarding insurance so as to create the crime of staging a collision and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 31st to speak to House Bill 353.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Senate. I bring to you House Bill 353, dealing with staged accidents. Staging a motor vehicle collision is an extremely dangerous activity, and the activity puts not only the driver and passengers of the vehicles involved, but at risk. It also puts others at risk. In the last 2 years, there's been some 40 different cases of this that's been pursued by the insurance commissioner. People arrested in this for this activity come from places like Macon, Atlanta, Newnan, Savannah, Augusta, Fairburn, Byron, Riverdale, Jonesboro, Fort Valley, and others. We believe that this is just a tip of the iceberg. On your desk, you should find letters of support from NFIB and the Georgia Chamber, as well as some articles detailing this. So I would ask for your favorable support on this. I will point out that the Senate Judiciary Committee did make a couple of small changes to the House bill. Those changes you'll find on line 21, dealing with the punishment. We went from not less than 5 nor more than 20 to not less than 2 nor more than 10. So be glad to answer any questions if there are any. Otherwise, I ask your favorable consideration.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 48th for a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Does the senator yield?
Yes, ma'am.
Isn't it true there's already a felony for insurance fraud within the Georgia Code?
There is a code dealing with this in the insurance code, but this goes further than just that. This is we're trying to get to the folks that are beyond just the drivers of the vehicles to those that are putting these schemes together.
Does the senator further yield?
Yes, ma'am.
Isn't it true that the insurance fraud code as written covers people beyond?
I'm sorry?
Isn't it true that the insurance fraud code section covers these people and that this bill is not necessary?
No, ma'am, that's not true. This is becoming an epidemic. There's people being injured in this. It is clearly insurance fraud, and the industry is not able to control this using the current law.
Thank you.
You have no more questions,
Thank
Senator.
you, Mr. President. I urge your favorable consideration.
Any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? The chair hears none. The question is on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to the adoption of the committee substitute? Chair hears none, and the committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? Chair hears none, and the main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass by substitute? Question is on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor will vote yea. Opposed, nay. Secretary will unlock the machine. For what purpose is the senator from the 48th rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Isn't it true the House vote on this bill was 93 yes and 76 no?
That's an inappropriate question at this time. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 41, the nays are 10. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. Ms. Secretary, can you please read the caption of House Bill 314?
House Bill 314 by Representative Stevens, 164th and others, a bill entitled Enactment Chapter 7, Title 52 of the OCGA, relating to registration, operation, and sale of watercraft, so as to provide for the titling of certain vessels, to provide for procedures with regard to titling such vessels, provide for legislative intent and findings, provide for a short title to amend Part 1 of Article 1 of Chapter 8 of Title 48 of the OCGA, relating to general provisions regarding sales and use taxes, so as to provide for a cap on the sales and use tax on the purchase or lease of a vessel and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Finance offers the following substitute to House Bill 314, a bill we titled Enactment Chapter 7, Title 52 of the OCGA, relating to registration, operation, and sale of watercraft, so as to provide for the titling of certain vessels, provide for procedures with regard to titling such vessels, provide for legislative intent and findings, and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes a senator from the 56th to speak to House Bill 314.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a fairly straightforward bill that has been passed by this body in prior years. It simply allows us to title a boat the same way you would an automobile. In Georgia, we face an extraordinary amount of theft of boats because we do not have that in place. This will allow that process to make sure that we are able to track down a boat if it is stolen, as well as it helps protect both the boat owners as well as set up the appropriate financing with banks and other lending institutions. If there are no questions, I will yield the will.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 48th for a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Does the chairman yield?
I yield.
What, if any, fiscal impact does this have on our budget?
We believe it to be very little based on talking to our folks in revenue, as they already do this for boats today, so there's a process in place.
Thank you, sir.
Any others? You have no more questions.
Thank you. I urge your favorable consideration.
Any other senators wish to speak for or against the bill? Question is on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to adoption of the committee substitute? Chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass by substitute? Questions on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 46 and nays are 2. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. I want to take a moment to bring some of y'all up to speed. Some of y'all were here this morning. We have a doorkeeper, Charles Ashfield, who had a medical condition, and I want to report to you that he is in good health. He has suffered a heart attack and has had a medical procedure and is back on the road to recovery. And I want to mention his name and lift him up so that we can keep his family and himself in our thoughts and prayers over the coming days. But truly a miracle here today, right here amongst us. Thank you so much for the first responders that helped with that situation. Mr. Secretary, can you read the caption of House Bill 339?
House Bill 339 by Representative McLean of the 100th and others. The bill be titled enactment code section 40-2-86 of the OCGA relating to special license plates promoting and supporting certain beneficial projects, agencies, funds, or nonprofit corporations to establish specialty license plate to benefit Alabama A&M University and for other purposes. Mr. President, Senate Public Safety Committee offers the following substitute to House Bill 339. A bill be titled enactment code section 40-2-86 of the OCGA relating special license plates promoting supporting certain beneficial projects, agencies, funds, or nonprofit corporations as establish a specialty license plate to benefit Alabama A&M University. Amendment 1 by Senator Anderson of the 43rd and others offers the following amendment. Amend the Senate Public Safety Committee substitute to House Bill 339 by deleting line 5 and inserting in lieu thereof the following. Georgia to establish a specialty license plate honoring Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated to provide for related matters and for other purposes. Amendment 2 by Senator Anderson of the 43rd and others offers the following amendment. Amend the Senate Committee on Public Safety's substitute to House Bill 339 by inserting between Georgia and 2 on line 5 the following. To designate a paragraph as to provide for the disbursement of proceeds from the sale of a special license plate for the Georgia Aquarium and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 43rd to speak to House Bill 339 and both amendments number 1 and amendment number 2.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, colleagues. I rise to present House Bill 339, which is a very, very simple bill. I am calling this bill the 4A bill, one for Alabama A&M, for autism, for Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and for the aquarium. And my last name is A, so Team A is in the house. So House Bill 339 will create a license plate for Alabama A&M University, although I graduated from the Alabama State University, and this is our rival. I am going to be a frenemy to our rival school, and be generous enough to pass this bill for them. This bill will create a license plate, and the proceeds will go towards scholarships for Georgia students who choose to attend Alabama A&M. The First Amendment, I won't say what else. The First Amendment will add in here a special license plate. There is already a license plate honoring Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. However, the proceeds now will be directed to the Ivy Community Foundation of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, as well as Amendment number 2 would also add a license plate for the Georgia Aquarium. If there are no questions, Mr. President, if there are questions, I will take them. If there are no questions, I'll yield the will.
You have no questions.
Thank you.
Any other senator wish to speak to the bill or the amendments? All right. We're going to take up the amendments first. We'll take up amendment number 1, which is not labeled amendment number 1, but here's how you'll know it's amendment number 1. It's not amendment number 2. AM 390266 is amendment number 1. The question is on the adoption of amendment number 1. Is there objection to adoption of the amendment? The chair hears none, and a floor amendment number 1 is adopted. Now we'll take up amendment number 2, which is AM 390274. question is on the adoption of amendment number 2. Is there objection to the adoption of the amendment? Chair hears none, and amendment number 2, floor amendment number 2, is adopted. The question is on the adoption of the committee substitute now as amended. Is there objection to the adoption of the committee substitute as amended? Chair hears none, and the committee substitute is adopted as amended. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? The chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass by substitute? The question is on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 49, the nays are 1. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. Mr. Secretary, can you please read the caption of House Bill 39?
House Bill 39 by Representatives Belton, 112th, and others, a bill be titled enactment Chapter 33 of Title 43 of the OCGA relating to physical therapists so as to revise licensing provisions to enter into an interstate compact known as the Physical Therapy Licensure Compact Act to authorize the State Board of Physical Therapy to administer the compact and the state to provide definitions, to provide for criminal history records checks for licensing purposes and for other purposes. Mr. President, Senate Health and Human Services Committee offers the following subject House Bill 39, a bill be titled enactment Chapter 33, Title 43 of the OCGA relating to physical therapists so as to revise licensing provisions to enter into an interstate compact known as the Physical Therapy Licensure Compact Act and for other purposes. Mr. President, Amendment 1 by Senator Thompson, the 14th, and others offers the following amendment. Amendment the Senate Committee on Health and Human Services substitute to House Bill 39 by replacing line 50 with the following. Issuing licenses, provided, however, that reports from such record checks should not be shared with entities outside of the state. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 14th to speak to House Bill 39.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the Senate, this is a straightforward bill, HB 39. It's one of 4 bills that we've already looked at. The Pentagon has requested. This is a physical therapy compact, just allowing physical therapists to practice in person across state lines. We do have an amendment. It's an amendment I offered. It's kind of, they were for it before they're against it, but they're for it again. This bill came to committee. The committee amended in there. We found out that FBI and the state was against that amendment and that we cannot share that information, so this amendment takes it back to its real estate. That being said, I'll yield the well.
Any other senators wish to speak for or against the bill? Chair hears none. The question's on the adoption of the amendment. Is there objection to the adoption of the amendment? All right, back in order here. Anyone else wish to speak for or against the bill or the amendment? All right, we'll take up amendment number 1. The question's on the adoption of amendment number 1. Is there objection to adoption of the amendment? Chair hears none, and the floor amendment is adopted. The question is on the adoption of the committee substitute as amended. Is there objection to adoption of the committee substitute as amended? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted as amended. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass by substitute? The question is on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. The Secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 51, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. Mr. Secretary, can you please read the caption of House Bill 79?
House Bill 79 by Representative Gilliard of the 162nd and others. A bill we titled enactment Chapter 4, Title 30 of the OCGA, relating to rights of persons with disabilities, so as to provide that blind persons shall not be discriminated against by the Courts Department of Human Services or child placing agency in matters relating to child custody, guardianship, foster care, visitation, placement, or adoption. Provide for definitions, provide for rules and regulations for other purposes. Mr. President, Senate Committee on Judiciary offers the following subject to House Bill 79, bill we titled enactment Chapter 4, Title 30 of the OCGA, relating to rights of persons with disabilities, so as to provide that blind persons shall not be discriminated against by the Courts Department of Human Services or a child placing agency in matters relating to child custody, guardianship, foster care, visitation, placement, or adoption. Provide for definition to make code section 19-9-3 of the OCGA relating to establishment and review of child custody and visitation, so as to prohibit discrimination of blind persons in child custody proceedings and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 33rd to speak to House Bill 79.
Thank you, Mr. President, my fellow senators, colleagues, friends, and y'all. This is a bill that's near and dear to my heart, and it's a simple bill. Basically, the purpose of this bill is to protect the best interests of children parented by blind individuals or children who could be parented by blind individuals through the establishment of procedural safeguards that require adherence to due process and equal protection rights of blind parents in the context of child welfare, foster care, and adoption. Parents can't be denied parental rights based on blindness, and there are provisions to demonstrate if the parents are capable parents with without supportive services. And to the senator from the 48th, there's no fiscal note. Mr. President, I yield the well. Thank you.
Senator has yielded the well. Any other senators wish to speak for or against the bill? Chair hears none. Questions on the adoption of the committee substitute? Is there objection to adoption of the committee substitute? Chair hears none, and the committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? The chair hears none, and the main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass by substitute? The question is on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 49, the nays are 2. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. Ms. Secretary, can you please read the caption of House Bill 257?
House Bill 257 by Representative Scoggins, the 14th, and others. A bill be titled and act to amend Chapter 10 to Title 15 of the OCGA relating to magistrate courts so as to increase the authority by which the Council of Magistrate Court Judges can organize itself and provide for officers, remove outdated provisions, and for other purposes. Amendment 1 by Senator Unterman, the 45th, offers the following amendment. Amend House Bill 257 by replacing line 4 with the following. The bond amount required for each magistrate to revise qualifications of magistrates, to revise powers and duties of magistrates, to, by replacing line 149 with the following. Exercised any jurisdiction. D, no magistrate shall preside over any final hearing or trial in the Superior State Court, including but not limited to any matter that the magistrate has been designated by a Superior State Court judge to hear without prior written consent of the parties and their counsels of record. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 52nd to speak to House Bill 257.
Thank you, Mr. President. I normally stay away from these type of bills, but our new representative of the 14th, who is a retired probate judge and took over for our former governor's floor leader from the 14th, who's now on the State Court of Appeals, brought this bill, and I told him I would carry it over here for him. This does a lot of cleanup in this bill. In Section 1, it gives the Magistrate Council a little bit more flexibility in how they organize their council. And then there's a lot of deletions in there that really were back from 1984 in Section 2. Dealing with justices of the peace, that language is no longer needed. It raises their bond from $25,000 to $100,000, puts them in line similar with probate judges. And it also changes some of the requirements for holding office as a magistrate, that they have to be a resident of the county for 2 years before taking office instead of 1. It adds some new provisions which would require the judge to be a registered voter, citizen, and remain a resident of the county while in office. This is putting it similar to probate judge language, to my understanding. And then Section 4, we again delete a bunch of old provisions related to the conversion of justices of the peace to magistrates. I think it's a fairly straightforward cleanup bill. There is an amendment that's going to be offered, and I guess at this point I'm sort of neutral on it. I'm going to listen to the lawyers talk this one out and hope they don't talk too long on it. If there's no questions, I'll yield the well.
You have a question. Chair recognizes our good friend from Gwinnett County for a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Does the chairman yield? I
yield.
Could you please help me understand why the changes were needed on lines 134 to 149?
This was, let me go to 134.
Specifically, it's the change of the number of years of residency, and then
well, their thinking was that this would put them in line with what probate court is, and that this hasn't been addressed in many years, and they were trying to get consistency on this.
Okay, so for clarification, this lines up with what the probate judge requirements are?
That's my understanding. That's what I was told by those that worked on this bill. And it went through special judiciary committee.
Thank you, sir.
You have no more questions.
Thank you. I'll yield the well and wait for the amendment.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 45th to speak to amendment number 1.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I bring before you amendment number 1, and I, like the senator from Rome, Georgia, am not used to writing particular bills or amendments related to the court system. I'm not an attorney, and I'm not practicing law in court, and don't have any reason to. But what I do have a reason to listen to is my constituents. And when I listen to my constituents and they have complaints, I try to do the best of my ability to answer and to be responsive to what their complaints are. And just by coincidence, some of the complaints that I received are issues that I do deal with in the General Assembly that are related to domestic relations and family law. So therefore, when I saw that House Bill 257 was coming across, I realized that in my particular county that we have had complaints about magistrates being moved up into the Superior Court positions. The number one issue about that is accountability. And I understand the magistrates do a very good job, and I completely agree with what they're trying to change within House Bill 257. But the problem is accountability. And when these judges are moved up, Superior Court judges are elected just like you and I are elected on the ballot, and they have to be accountable to the public. But when the magistrate judges are moved up, then that accountability lessens. And I realize that they are under the purview of the Superior Court judge, but still it diminishes that ability for someone to complain. The other issue is lawyers, just like the lawyers that are sitting in here, they're afraid to complain because these are the same lawyers, these are the same attorneys that have to go before these judges. And of course, they don't want to be prejudiced against them, and I know that. And since I'm not an attorney, I don't have a problem with that at all. Probably even if I did, I wouldn't have a problem with it. But anyway, what I'm looking for is accountability. I'm looking for standardization, and I'm looking for consistency. Because when you look at the different circuits and how different circuits operate, it seems like some of them don't have these same complaints. And when I was looking at the adjacent circuit of Hall and Dawson County, I found out that they have...
Senator, will you stand at ease for a moment? I would urge each and every senator to give the senator in the well the respect they're due. Please proceed.
What I found out when I started researching this, that the Northeast Judicial Circuit has a standing order for domestic relations cases, and it was put into effect on December 31st in 2010. I also found out some other adjacent counties, these big urban counties. I understand the caseload. I was a former county commissioner. I had to fund all the positions that are relative to Superior Court. It's a very expensive duty. It's also expensive when we add additional Superior Court judges into the system, just like we are this year. We're adding another judge in Gwinnett County. So what I'm asking for is that accountability, standardization, and the most important thing is, and what bothers me the most about this, magistrate judges are making decisions that last a lifetime because they're adjudicating cases of divorce cases and custody cases. And unfortunately, in custody cases, when you are separating families and making decisions about that, that lasts a lifetime. And children can either be harmed or they can be hurt by that. And it has lasting repercussions if it's not done correctly. And I understand that the Superior Court judge is over that, but I think there's a laxness in the system. So I have been talking to my delegation, and I am willing to work with Superior Court judges in Gwinnett County and try to resolve this issue, but I do think throughout the state that the Superior Court system and those judges need to come up with that standardization so that the whole state is doing it equally and doing it the same. Because these lawyers that practice in here, you should know when you go to Gwinnett County what happens. You should know when you go to Fulton County what happens. And I think that's just the professionalism of the different circuits. So I'll be glad to answer any questions about this amendment, and at the proper time, I will withdraw the amendment. I think I have made a statement about this, and that was my main objective. The most purposeful thing we can do is to take care of families in Georgia and to make sure that it's done correctly, adequately, and to the best of our abilities. And that's what our goal is, and that's what we're trying to accomplish. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
The chair recognizes the senator from the 5th for a question.
Senator Yell?
Yes, I will.
Is it a problem in Gwinnett County or specific magistrate judge, or having, just Could you elaborate a little bit?
I have received complaints from different attorneys in Gwinnett County, and yes, I do think it is a problem.
Is it can I further ask, is it problem with any particular magistrate judge or just a,
No, I think it's the system, it's the infrastructure.
No further question.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 48th for a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Does the chairman yield?
Yes.
Isn't it true that I am the chairwoman of the Gwinnett County delegation?
Yes, that's true.
And
doing
isn't
a
it,
very good job.
Thank you, thank you. And it isn't also true that we have spoken about this issue and we have agreed that as a caucus, as a delegation, we're going to do something about this issue?
Yes, and I appreciate that, and I know that we all have the best interest of families, not just in Gwinnett, but the state of Georgia, but I think it is indicative of how the rest of the circuits could also potentially change.
Thank you very much. I agree with you, and I think we're going to work to make the system better for everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. With that, Mr. President, I'll yield the well. In the proper time, I'll make a motion to withdraw amendment number 1, and I appreciate the author, the senator from Rome carrying the bill. I yield the well.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the senator from the 45th.
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Isn't it true? I just had a senator say, wouldn't you like to reconsider that amendment and leave it in there?
I believe only you and the other senator would know.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to withdraw amendment number 1 and to allow the bill, give its full-hearted support of House Bill 257.
The senator from the 45th has moved that amendment number 1 be withdrawn. Is there objection? Hearing none, the amendment is withdrawn. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? The chair hears none, and the previous question is ordered. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none, the report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? The chair hears none, the main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass? The question is on the passage of the bill. All those in favor will vote yea, opposed nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 52, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. For what purpose does the senator from the 23rd rise?
President, I have 2 motions. I move that the Senate disagree to the House substitute to SB 110.
Senator from the 23rd has moved that the Senate disagree to the House substitute Senate Bill 110. Will the Secretary read the caption?
Senate Bill 110 by Senator Stone of the 23rd and others. The bill will be titled enactment in Title 15 of the OCGA relating to courts so as to establish the statewide business court pursuant to the Constitution of the state, to amend Code Section 45-7-4 of the OCGA relating to general provisions regarding salaries and fees so as to designate a salary for the judge of the statewide business court, to amend Title 5 of the OCGA relating to appeal and error so as to make conforming changes and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Senator from the 23rd has moved that the Senate disagree to the House substitute to Senate Bill 110. Is there objection? Hearing no objection, the Senate disagrees. Chair recognizes the Senator from the 23rd for his second motion.
Mr. President, I move that House Bill 346 be taken from the table.
Senator from the 23rd has moved that House Bill 346 be taken from the table. Will the Secretary read the caption?
House Bill 346 by Representative Cooper of the 43rd and others, a bill be titled enacting amendment Article 1 of Chapter 7, Title 44 of the OCGA, relating to landlord and tenant generally, so as to prohibit retaliation by a landlord against a tenant for taking certain actions and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Senator from the 23rd has moved that House Bill 346 be taken from the table. Is there objection? Hearing no objection, House Bill 346 is placed at the end of the calendar. Will the Secretary read the caption of House Bill 266?
House Bill 266 by Representatives Widower of the 119th and others, a bill be titled enacting amendment Code Section 48-7-27 of the OCGA, relating to computation of taxable net income so as to revise the deduction from income for contributions to savings trust accounts established pursuant to Article 11 of Chapter 3 of Title 20 and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the Senator from the 27th to speak to House Bill 266. Change of plans. The Chair is going to recognize the Senator from the 56th from Roswell to speak to the measure.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 266 is an excellent bill that encourages additional savings for our 529 accounts. Many of us that have sent our kids through college have participated in those. The original rates of $2,000 were set back in 2002. During that time, college has increased an extraordinary amount, as have fees. This just moves that up to $4,000, and then the $4,000 for a joint return up to $8,000. Pretty straightforward. It's going to help to save more money, get a little interest on that money, and hopefully reduce the student loan debt. If there are no questions, I will yield the well.
You have no questions.
Thank
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? The chair hears none, and the previous question is ordered. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? The chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass? The question is on the passage of the bill. All those in favor will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The Secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 44, the nays are 7. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Secretary, can you please read the caption of House Bill 322? House Bill 281.
House Bill 281 by Representatives Anolowitz of the 42nd and others, a bill be titled enacting amendment Code Section 16-6-13 of the OCGA relating to penalties for violating Code Section 16-6-9 through 16-6-12 so as to increase the penalty provisions relating to pimping and pandering and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 29th to speak to House Bill 281.
Thank you, Mr. President. Fellow senators, I stand before you today talking about House Bill 281. The bottom line, House Bill 281 is a human rights bill. House Bill 281 protects the victims of sexual trafficking in Georgia. Currently today, we have sex traffickers that move around our state, and sadly, Atlanta is one of the #1 places in the United States of America for the selling of victims of this horrible crime. Currently, the victims of this crime are incarcerated longer than those who perpetrate the crimes to begin with. And those are the ones known as pimps, who sell these victims and those who are known as panderers who make the purchases. I've heard from this well many times, these are simple bills, and I think the decision on this is extremely, extremely simple. And today I ask you to stand up for the victims of sex trafficking and vote unanimously for House Bill 281. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the well.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 48th to speak to the measure.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to fully support the senator of the 29th and his comments as two of the three law enforcement senators in this chamber. It is extremely important to take these crimes seriously because Atlanta is a hub for human trafficking and sex trafficking, and this will give us another opportunity to punish those who prey on our vulnerable. I urge us all to support this bill. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the well.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 35th to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senators, I too stand in favor of this legislation. It's been almost 20 years ago when I passed similar legislation, but it wasn't strong enough. Of course, we know that it's supply and demand, so both are just as guilty, the pimps and the panderers. And it is still like a revolving door. When the pimps or panderers are arrested, then they can make bail and get right out. Although when those young people who they've trafficked on the street, they go to jail. They're the victims anyway because most of them are underage and they are the victims, but they have to go to jail. And when the people who put them on the street or who uses them, then they are the ones that get out. So let us try to do everything we can to strengthen this law. And this is one way to do it. And like I said, we definitely need both the pimp and the panderer to be arrested and let it be a felony, and maybe they won't be out there on the street taking our children. If there are no questions, I yield the well.
You have no questions. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? The chair hears none and the main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass? The question is on the passage of the bill. All those in favor will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 49, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Ms. Secretary, will you read the caption on House Bill 322?
House Bill 322 by Representatives McCall of the 33rd and others, a bill be titled enactment Title 36 of the OCGA relating to local government, so as to change provisions relating to the advertisement of certain bid or proposal opportunities, to change notice provisions relating to public works, construction contracts, and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Senate Amendment 1 by Senator Payne of the 54th and others offers the following amendment. Amend House Bill 322 by inserting after opportunities on line 3 the following. To amend Article 3 of Chapter 82 of Title 36 of the OCGA relating to revenue bonds so as to revise the definition of the term undertaking as it relates to electric systems by inserting between lines 27 and 28 the following. Section 1A, Article 3 of Chapter 82 of Title 36 of the OCGA relating to revenue bonds is amended by revising definitions 4-C 4 of Code Section 3682-61 relating to definitions relative to revenue bonds as follows. 4, used or useful in connection with buying, constructing, extending, operating, and maintaining gas or electric generating transmission and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 28th to speak to House Bill 322.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was actually called out of the bullpen to sub in for the senator from the 13th. I hope he's feeling better and gets on the mend. But if y'all will remember back last year during the legislative session, we passed House Bill 489, simply requiring our local governments to post an advertisement on the Georgia Procurement Registry. We set that limit at $10,000. Now, important note, this is free for our local governments, but one issue we were hearing from the local governments is some of them, they have some local laws that actually do allow them to, or don't require them to post in some cases when it goes over 10,000, but there's a little bit of a limit. So in honor of that, we wanted to raise that cap. So now any bid that will go out over $100,000, now we'll have to go on that Georgia Procurement Registry. We actually have our local municipalities and our local contractors have come together and agreed on this, which is not always the case. So I commend the Senator from the 13th and our Ag Chair from the House on all their hard work on getting this done. With that, I'll yield for questions.
You have no questions.
Thank you, Mr. President. I urge favor, whatever.
I think he said I urge for your... Chair recognizes the senator from the 54th to speak to amendment number 1.
Thank you, Mr. President. Friends, the amendment is the exact language of Senate Bill 43, which this body passed by a very large margin on February 25th. This amendment provides parity in the issuance of revenue bonds for infrastructure growth and needs in the transmission of electrical power for any municipal utility that has a net book value of less than $300 million in electric utility assets. This is the one we passed. It benefits. The purpose we brought this in originally was to help my community. They're the utility the city owns, and it passed by a large margin. I ask for your favorable support. So if there's no questions, I'll yield the well.
You have no questions. Any other senators want to speak to the bill or the amendment? All right, we're going to take up amendment number 1. The question is on the adoption of amendment number 1. Is there objection to the adoption of the amendment? Chair, there is objection. All those in favor of amendment number 1 from the senator from the 54th will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. For what purpose does the senator from the 54th rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Isn't it true that the senator from the 54th would encourage everyone to vote yes on this measure?
I'm certain the gentleman knows of what he speaks. On the adoption of the amendment, the yeas are 38, the nays are 14, and the amendment is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? The chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass as amended? The question is on the passage of the bill as amended. All those in favor will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 39, the nays are 13. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed as amended. Mr. Secretary, can you please read the caption of House Bill 367?
House Bill 367 by Representatives Taylor, 173rd, and others. A bill be titled enactment of Title 33 of the OCGA relating to insurance, so as to enact the Corporate Governance Annual Disclosure Act, to provide for definition, to provide for the reporting of corporate governance structure, to provide for enforcement authority, to provide for confidentiality, to provide for applicability, and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 16th to speak to House Bill 367.
Is dealing with the National Association of Insurance Commissioners and bringing the Georgia Code in line with their holding company systems. There are 26 states that have already adopted this. This adoption needs to be made by 2020 in order to allow us to participate with them, and has to do with the holding companies from that standpoint, and the standard will accreditate us with the National Association of Insurance Commissioners so we can comply with them.
You have a question. Chair recognizes our good friend from Gwinnett County for a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Does the chairman yield?
Yield.
I just need to understand, who are the insurers who are going to have to submit a corporate structured summary to the Insurance Commission every year?
Would you repeat the question, please?
Yes, sir. Who are the insurers who are going to be required to submit a corporate structured summary to the Insurance Commission every year?
These are the companies that are participating in the state of Georgia, and what this does is the insurance commissioners nationally have a standard, and we're accepting that standard, so everybody's looking at one format, if you will, for all of those companies that are operational.
Great. Thank you, sir.
Okie doke.
You have no more questions.
Thank you, sir.
Senator has yielded the well. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? The chair hears none, and the previous question is ordered. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? The chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass? The question is on the passage of the bill. All those in favor will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 47, the nays are 2. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. The Senate is going to stand adjourned for 15 minutes. At ease. I'm going to get used to that word. At ease. Sorry. The Senate's going to stand at ease for 15 minutes.